Fathers, love everyone and welcome. Today I want to share a special video with you entitled Truths About Trafficking. It's a Q&A session with Tim Ballard, the founder of Operation Underground Railroad, which most of you know is very near and dear to my heart. So let's sit back and relax and get a little educated on what goes on around us.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen.
I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS.
I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
Yeah. Oh, there is no distance that cannot be covered over and over.
You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor.
Oh, I hear you whisper underneath your breath.
I hear your SOS, your SOS.
I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. Oh, I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. I hear the whispers underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS.
I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. Oh, I will rescue you.
It's amazing the support that we're getting right now for this cause. I've been wondering when this was going to happen, a kind of bigger movement. A lot of you have been involved from the beginning, but there's a national movement going on. I can't really understand it. I don't know what's going on, but we've been praying for this. I mean, how is it that the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world has been something that people haven't talked about for the decades it's been going on? I've been doing this for 17 years, and it's been such a lonely trek. When I was a special agent with the government, and even trying to talk to friends and family about what I'm seeing, that's not happening. There's no way. And it was the loneliest time in my life, really, when I was an undercover operator. When we started Operation Underground Railroad, it's about 7 years ago, I knew the darkness was still going to be there, but I was really encouraged because people like you started showing up. And I thought, well, there's a lot of light too in this world. I had been 12 years in darkness, and there's a lot of light, and I got optimistic. But even then, that light was like, how do we get it to be bigger and bigger? This is not a small thing. These are millions of people who are enslaved. There's more people enslaved today than ever before in the history of the world. 30 million people, 10 million roughly are children. And those children are being sold for labor, for sex, slavery, and even for organ harvesting. We've been able to take down a couple of organ harvesting rings, believe it or not, in the Middle East. And we can't get into the details of that, but this is not a small thing. And I've been screaming for, years, like, this is huge. How do we wake people up? This is real captivity. One thing that we do, because we feel it's necessary, is we film everything we can legally film with the permission of our partners to show them. And many of you have probably seen our documentaries. We have another one. We're about to make a huge announcement with another docu-series that's coming out. But this is necessary so people can actually see, okay, children are being taken, they're being trafficked. And so I feel finally we're at this place where we've got the world's attention. But it's just time to get loud for the kids. And the one thing that keeps coming back to me is, kids can't organize. They can't march. They can't riot. They can't protest. They can't do any of that, which is why we don't see that. There's always great causes and people doing this for years, and it's great. First Amendment's awesome. Speak, get loud. And I've always wondered, where's the march for the kids? And the reason is because they're kids. And we have to stand up for them. And that's what you're all doing. And thank you. I mean, we just need numbers and light and loud, and you're all doing it. And I'm just honored to be here with you. And I just have nothing but gratitude for all of you for being here, being willing to lend your voice. You're all influencers. I think Henry told me, how many millions could we possibly connect to?
Between 50 and 150 million.
I mean, up to 150 million people in this room alone. So thank you. And it's not easy, by the way. Like, I barely got through that song, Jen. I mean, and that's another reason why we haven't been able to build the movement, apart from the fact that kids can't organize. It's that it's hard to look at. I know I didn't go into this thing with my sword unsheathed. I mean, if you know my story, it was my wife that basically, it came down to a point in my life where my wife said, I will not let you jeopardize my salvation by not doing this. I wanted to quit. I know how hard this is, even to show up and watch one of our documentaries or just know the stories. It is difficult. It's dark. We tend to superimpose our children's faces or our nieces or nephews' friends' faces onto the children victims. I do that, and it just breaks my heart. But I came to the point, and I think we all have to come to the point where we just accept we have to do that. It's the least we can do. If we have to lose a little innocence and we have to suffer a little bit, well, that suffering pales in comparison to that child who's living through a hell unimaginable. And so thank you for being brave to even address this and stand up.
Thank you. So we have a series of questions from different communities. So we have different influencers here with different communities. Some, mom bloggers, some teenagers that are here that want to represent. We have a young Ever here who's 10 years old representing the young ones. And so we're just going to go through a series of questions. We'll try to get to everybody's question. If we don't, we'll answer as many questions on video afterwards, or we'll make sure all your questions are answered for your audiences. First, we have Whitney Simmons asking the first question. So thank you, Whitney, for being here. Thank you so much.
For having me. So I know this is a hard topic for a lot of people to talk about, but what is the reality of what's happening in the U.S. and in the world, and what are some important facts that people should know?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll address the U.S. A lot of people think this is not something I need to pay attention to in this country because this happens in developing countries, and so it's not my problem. And I've heard that in my entire career. And the facts are quite the opposite. would lead you to quite the opposite conclusion. First of all, we should recognize that the United States, we are the #1 consumers of child exploitation material. I'm sorry, I call it child rape material because that's what it is. I tend to call it what it is. Maybe I've lost some filters over my career. But we're the #1 consumers of that. Think about that. Okay, so when we're in 26 countries, and we are targeting, we're rescuing kids #1, but we're targeting #2, our countrymen who are out doing this. Okay, we are the demand, we are the problem. There's a reason why in the last Trafficking in Persons report issued by the State Department, the United States ranked in the top 3 for destination countries for trafficking. Traffickers want to get their kids into our country because this is where they can make the most money. This is where the largest kind of population of pedophiles exist. So we better wake up because our kids live here too, amongst this madness. And if we're not awake, we're gonna lose our own. And so that's the numbers in the United States. And the numbers keep growing and growing and growing. It's estimated that there's about 18,000 children and women who are smuggled into the United States every year and forced into some form of slavery. And then the other thing I'd say about the United States versus outside, it's more difficult to see here, so it's easier to turn a blind eye. Most of the deals that are done, people are surprised to learn that close to half of our operations are actually domestic. But we can't talk about them because they're usually a high-tech response. So it's the dark net stuff where we work very closely with law enforcement partners, Internet Crimes Against Children, task forces, to make sure that law enforcement has the tools they need. But the deals are done online to the dark net here. And so parents, if you're listening, know the social media applications, the platforms that your kids are on. Understand how easy it is for predators to access your kids. Just up the street, a few weeks ago, there was a guy, his name was Danny Hardman, 42 years old. The AG's office caught him. He was gaming online with 2 6-year-old girls from Indiana. Mom and dad had no idea that the little kid game, playing like a game a 6-year-old can play, no idea that they weren't playing against the computer. Because if you're my age or older, especially, you can't even comprehend that. We played against the computer, right? Atari or whatever, right? And now these parents think, oh yeah, you're playing that little butterfly game or whatever. No, you're playing with a 42-year-old pedophile, and you've been playing with him for 6 months, and he got these girls, because he just instructed them, desensitized them, got them to send him naked pictures. 6 years old. Luckily, the AG's office intervened and got him before he actually accessed. But this is what's going on right now, and parents need to wake up to the reality that this is a crisis, and these guys know how to access our kids. Sorry, I probably answered like 3 questions with your one. I get going and I can't stop. So.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Alex, you want to go ahead and ask your question? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. Only women can do that. I'm not very good at that. Yeah. First of all, Tim, I've got to start with an apology. Because 7, 8 years ago, you approached me on this. We did a few things, and then I kind of just lost interest and had other things that was going on in my life. I look back now, I see everything that's going on. I saw your last post, and you said something that really hit me so hard. As a singer, I have a voice. If I can't use that voice, I don't live. The thing that hit me really hard is when you said, these kids don't have a voice. They can't get out and protest. They can't go out and say, hey, this is going on. There's nobody that can do it for them. I, as a black man, I've been, right, you know what's going on right now, right? I've been going out and I've been protesting and talking and having a chance to use my voice. That's what resonated with me when you said they don't have a voice. And that's why I'm here. That's what I want to do as much as I can to help in my own way. But my question for you, Tim, was you say the reports of child abuse and exploitation are millions higher right now than they were last year. Mm-hmm. Can you share with us how that's happening?
Yeah, sure. And I'm sorry if it's going to be controversial. This is not a political thing at all. So don't interpret it that way, but this is the reality of what's happening right now. And these are complex issues as well. But we have seen an uptick, millions of additional reports reported by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children this year. Millions. We run a few labs throughout the world, digital forensic labs, where we are supporting our law enforcement and they are tracking all these cases coming in. But I talked to the AG here in Utah. It's like 50 times more reports coming in. They can't handle them. What's going on? What's going on is we, as a society, decided that we needed to shut down and lock down the infrastructure, schools, businesses, everything else because of COVID-19. And decisions were made based on available data, and that's what the decision was. Well, again, the kids are quiet, the kids aren't loud, the kids can't protest, they can't organize, and so no one brought them to the table to talk to them. How will this affect you? When you take out the infrastructure, like schools and after-school programs and sporting events, you take away a safety net for children. That keeps kids safe. We take for granted. We don't take it for granted because we understand we work in places like developing countries, like little Haiti, right? That's number 3 per capita in the world for trafficking. Why? Well, we've known for years why. They don't have the infrastructure that other countries are blessed with. They don't have the schooling infrastructure, so they're vulnerable to traffickers. And we just made our country like that. That's what we did. A country without infrastructure. And mom and dad are struggling for their jobs, trying to scavenge for food, so they're not paying attention. Here you go, little, here, child, son, daughter, take the iPhone, take the laptop, do your schoolwork, stay in this corner, don't leave. Me and mom got to head out to save our family. And guess what the pedophiles are doing? They're also on lockdown. Their jobs are suspended or they're working from home and they're on their laptops. We can track the chatter. And you know what they're saying? This is horrifying. It's harvest time. The kids are alone. We're over here. I just gave you that story that happened, the Hardman arrest. That's happening by the million right now. We won't even know the consequences for years to come. Millions of lines are out right now, and it'll be several years before we start seeing victims pop up. Say, I was taken, I was hurt, I was abused, and this is where it begins. Now, this is the part that's going to get maybe controversial, but it is what it is. We have data now, and I'm not a scientist, but I'm very interested in the data because the data affects our work. And we know this. The CDC agrees every single non-political, non-partisan healthcare provider, scientist from Harvard, from Stanford, from everywhere, CDC even, if you look at it, they are telling you this. If you are 65 years or younger, you have a 99.99% of surviving COVID if you get it. I'm going to say that one more time so it sinks in. If you're 65 years or younger, you have a 99.99% chance of surviving COVID. So we go further into the data. Now, if you're older than that, very dangerous, extremely dangerous. Lockdown, quarantine, stay out. But when you consider the trillions of dollars that the government has already spent to bail out businesses, you can take the tiniest fraction of that. And those people who are 65 or 70 and older, they could be in the Four Seasons Hotel for a year or more with a fraction of that money, right? They need to be taking care of people with pulmonary problems, asthma, whatever. That's a different story. But I'm talking about those who are 65, 60 years and younger. And here's the sad part. They're the ones that create that infrastructure that keep our kids safe. The last day, I think I saw the last data was something like 88% of teachers and coaches and people that create the infrastructure that keep our kids safe are under 60 years old. Teachers are a young profession. I think 3/4 are under 40 or something even. And so once we've taken care of the most vulnerable, the question that should be asked and is not being asked, should have always been asked, was never asked. This is the question. What is scarier to you? After we've taken care of the vulnerable, what is scarier to you? A virus that has a 99.99% chance of survivability, or the absolute fact that hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of children will be raped, will be sexually assaulted? That's not a hypothetical, that is the trade-off for this other one, for the 99% survivability. What do you, I mean, is it even, you don't even need to think for 2 seconds. You know the answer to that question. Have you heard anyone ask that question? Has any governor asked that question? Are medical professionals asking that question? No one is asking that question because the kids are still shoved in the closet. Take your laptop, let us adults figure this problem out, and you're not part of the equation. That's what's going on right now. How does this happen? You know, Nelson Mandela said, the true character of a nation is how you treat your children. If you really want to know what a nation is and what's their heart, I'm paraphrasing him, it's how do you treat your kids? We're not treating them very well right now. We have abandoned them. In this country and in every country. We need to bring them to the table. And then, here we go again, I don't want to weigh into controversy, but I have to for the kids. One crisis follows the next crisis. And now you know this, and I know this, what happened to George Floyd, horrific, grotesque, one of the worst things I've ever seen. I'm law enforcement. Illegal, horrible. Things need to change. There's no question about it. Policing needs to change. I have several ideas about what needs to change. But when I hear, and I know this is politically charged, and people say, don't say it, Tim, don't say it. When I hear this call for defund the police, I don't know what that means. I'm for transformation. But when you say that, I'm watching some of the places, city councils, who are saying, yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. And I'm looking at the sheriff response or the law enforcement say, our child crimes unit is gone. If they do this new budget, it's gone. You need to understand something about law enforcement. There's reactive work and proactive work. Most developing countries that we work in don't have proactive investigations. Why? Because the reactive ones you have to respond to. The homicides, the bank robberies, the assaults on the street, the things that are landing on your desk, you've got to respond to because the media is on you. People watched it happen. Child crimes don't land on your desk. I know, I've been doing this for 17 years. You have to go out and get them. You have to infiltrate organizations. You've got to get online. You've got to get creative. You need K9 units. You need mobile labs, things that OUR provides to law enforcement. These are proactive measures. This is a closet crime. It's done in the dark. There's no profile. You can't say this guy looks like a pedophile. He must be. These are everybody. It's anyone you can think of. We've arrested professionals, educators, doctors, lawyers. This is a closet crime. You have to go out and get it. And so when you take away funding from law enforcement, the first to go is proactive investigations. Because what you don't know, you don't know. Well, I can't be held responsible for what I don't know, but I've got to respond to the reactive stuff. So transform, yes. Don't hurt the kids. Again, we've already hurt them once this year, and we don't even know the consequences yet. Are we going to turn around 2 months later and do it again? Forget about them as we lose our units? Already the United States doesn't have the resources they need. We know because this is our business. We provide these K9 units that sniff out digital forensic media. This is so important. You hit a house, you do a search warrant on a child rapist, pornographer house. The law enforcement can't find. These guys are so smart now, these pedophiles, and they're hiding their evidence, the child rape videos, on like little digital media you can't even see. They hide it in carpets. They hide it in ceilings, whatever. They hide it. And the human being can't find it. So we have, who knows about our canine units, these unbelievable animals, these dogs, that are trained to sniff out that. And they go in and they sniff it out and boom, you got it. And that's the only hope some of these kids have because they're on that video. And if we find that, we'll find the kid. If we don't find that, that kid's trapped. The dogs are saving lives. We have a chart, you can see all of our different dogs. doTERRA, one of our local supporters here, they've purchased several of those dogs and they name them after their products. Like there's one of my favorite dogs is named Cinnamon Bark. It's a proactive move. The AG's office here, the ICAC has one. But this allows for the digital forensics to happen immediately when they're doing the search warrant on the house. Which means you get the evidence within a couple hours, which means you have enough to arrest that guy immediately. I remember the days when I was an agent and we do search warrants and I'd have to take that digital media, the laptops, the computers, the phones, and take them to a lab and they sit for 6 months. And we can't arrest the guy because we have a speedy trial clause in the Constitution, which I agree with. But if you arrest him too soon before the evidence is ready, he's gonna get acquitted, he's gonna get let off, you don't have time. Well, that's a 6 month period where this guy's free. I've come back to cases, broke my heart, where we 6 months later we're going through, oh my gosh, he's been abusing the girl next door. And then we come to find out that he even did it in that window after the search warrant. This is absolutely, there's no excuse for this. The mobile labs changed that. The guy's arrested on the spot because you do the digital forensics immediately. Every unit in the United States and the world needs these tools. And my fear is, they already, you understand, even before all the turmoil we're in and the questioning of the police, even before that, years before that, we are struggling as an organization to get those tools into the hands of those law enforcement. So now, can you imagine our fear now? Oh my gosh. It's already been an uphill battle. Now it's just got like this, straight uphill, trying to get people to protect our kids. So it's just, I'm not anti anything. I'm not anti anything that's, the movements and I love the First Amendment. This is not an anti anything. It's just a pro-child. We can do two things at once. We don't have to forget the kids every time we want to create an awareness campaign, or we need to respond to COVID or whatever. We can do both things, but the first question should always be, how will this affect kids? And somehow, it's not even the last question. It's not even on the list of questions right now. And that's what we need to change. Is my face all red? I just feel like I'm sorry. I get so upset and passionate. I feel like my face is like bright red right now. Okay.
Okay, so it's like such a massive, huge, scary subject, and I have two kids, 6 and 8-year-old girls. And so, I'm very actually open about this, and I talk to them about safety and stuff a lot more than other parents that I know, but I don't know how to approach some of these scary topics, and I don't know if it's like, do your kids know what you do? Is this something that you should be talking to your kids about? How do you do it? Like, when's a good time? Are they too young? All of the above.
Yeah. Such a good question, and something I've thought long and hard about. I don't have a great answer for it, but I can tell you what my wife and I have decided to do is, we have 9 children, and every single one of them gets that talk at a different age, because some are ready, some aren't ready. But it's a hard balance, because you don't want to scare your kids, you don't want to teach them something you don't want them to know, but at the same time, 6-year-old girls were taking their clothes off, this side of a month ago. Okay, so how do you balance that? It is so difficult, but the first thing I'll say is parents need to educate themselves on every single tool, online, social media program that your children have access to. You've got to understand it. And that's what parents don't understand what TikTok is, what Instagram is, what Facebook, they don't get it. I've had parents come to me and say, oh, my kid's fine. They're safe on Facebook, and here's my proof. Look at their page. It's so wholesome, and I'm like, that doesn't matter. They're 2 clicks away from hell at any time. It doesn't matter what their page looks like, And the other thing, I get these, these 13, 14-year-old girls with 10,000 followers, okay? Okay, are they all your friend? Do you know who they are? I'm talking about children here, right? Don't think they're all your friend. Okay, and I'm not against that at all. I think that it's a powerful medium, right, to do good and everything else. But educate yourself. Your children should know. Just because you have all these followers, they're not all your friends. And just because the guy who looks like he's this cute football player from the school down, the next city over, you don't know if that's who it is. We've had so many cases where grotesque old men pedophiles pose as a child online, and that's how they access your kids. So it's just about educating, and once the parents have it figured out and have a really good idea, really, you've got to go kid by kid and pray and meditate until you get your answer of what you should say and when you should say it, because it's so individual. There's no standard here. I've had kids where you had the sex talk at 7, and another one who wasn't ready till 11. Like a 3-year span, and it just depends on when. And I rely on my wife's spiritual kind of intuition more than mine about when that is and what should be said. And then in terms of when my kids when they're asking me questions about what I do, that's when I begin to have a conversation with them. Because I figure once they're mature enough to ask a question, that means they're mature enough to get an answer, something, right? So that's kind of how I gauge that with my kids, because I leave for long periods of time. Dad, where are you going? What's going on? And it's hard to explain to them what we're doing without. So it's just measured and individual, customized responses. I wish I had a better answer than that, but
No, that's amazing.
yeah.
That totally applies.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. I love that we have such a diverse group here. We have mothers, and now we have someone that reaches the younger audience. So Indy Blue's here, and she just had a question for her from her community.
Hi. So a lot of my followers just want to know like the first step, like how can I help? What do I do? And I think, like we mentioned, we've seen this crazy spike in awareness in the last couple of weeks. Tons of people are waking up, and I think it's so underestimated how just even sharing an infographic, what that does. And so I'm telling people just start speaking up. And my question is, like, why are people so quiet? I'm sure it drives you absolutely insane seeing mommy influencers make such waves and normal high school kids in Utah make such waves and not celebrities or media outlets. And I'm sure we just can all imagine how much good could be done if those powerful people finally spoke up. And I think what's so frustrating is these aren't sleeping people. These aren't ignorant people who don't know. These people are aware and they're silent. And so what is your opinion on why they're so silent?
Thank you. Great question, Indy. Thank you. First of all, I want to address the first part of your question, which has to do with getting loud. What can I do? The first thing I tell people is get loud. Send to all your influencers some stat, something. It doesn't have to be our organization. There's so many organizations out there. There's tons. Find one that you love, or even just stats or videos of anything. Get loud. That is the most effective thing you can do, and we know this. There's a historical precedent. There's a reason we call ourselves Operation Underground Railroad. That wasn't casual. I love history. We have to learn from history. How did And I'm careful to compare the transatlantic slave trade with modern day slavery. They're both slavery, but you don't want to cannibalize history and keep the integrity of each story. But there's lessons we must learn from the 19th century. How did slavery in the 400 years before it was finally eradicated legally, how did that happen? Same question I have today. How did we live that long as a people and do nothing about it? And finally, in the 19th century, people got loud. Why? What was the difference? What happened exactly? What happened was meetings like this finally started happening. So there's parallels here, right? People started to gather. People, the most brave people who are our heroes, who came out of slavery and began to be brave and tell their stories. Harriet Jacobs, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth. These amazing abolitionists, they began this movement. And historians all agree now. I love Abraham Lincoln, I do. But he didn't just raise his hand one day and say, I'm ending this. That's not what happened. In fact, he had a very different response when he came in as the president. He was, I'm not going to do anything about this, or very little. I don't like it, but I'm not going to do anything. So he was influenced by the influencers. He was. Harriet Beecher Stowe is someone a lot of us can maybe apply more to, because she wasn't a slave like many of us weren't. Most of us in this room weren't. So she wasn't, and so how did she? Because that's more like, she stumbled across slavery one day. She lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. She crossed the river. She goes into Kentucky, sees it, didn't mean to see it. Oh my gosh! Just like many of you had that moment. You crossed your river, you saw a video, you saw one of our movies or whatever you saw that you're like, oh my gosh. And then you ask the question, which Indy just asked, well, what can we do? What can I do? Harriet Beecher Stowe asked, what can I do? I'm a mom of several kids, I'm super busy in my life, but this is bugging me. She was more just as upset at the North as she was at the South for being so complicit and doing nothing about it and being so lazy and dumb over this whole thing for so long. And she says, but what can I do? And she wrote a letter to her sister. Her sister wrote back and said, you like to write? Anyone can write. You can talk. You can get loud. So she said, okay. And she tells the story. She stood up with her sister's letter in hand, encouraging her to write something. And she crunched it up. She was so impassioned, and she said, I will write something. I will if I live. And she sat down and began to write a book. And that book became the book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. Millions of people bought that book, joined their voices with the original abolitionists, the Tubmans and Frederick Douglass and these others, and they got loud. And they got so loud that Abraham Lincoln really, in the end, had to act. He changed. In 1862, he literally changed the purpose of the war. I won't get into it because I can go on for hours, but he changed the purpose of the war because of those voices. And when he met Harriet Beecher Stowe for the first time, and this is key, met her in the White House, it was called the Executive Mansion at the time, he grabs her hand and says, so you're the lady that wrote the book that started this war. Think about that. You are those people right now. That's who you are. You are the influencers. You're the Harriet Beecher Stowes. You are the Harriet Tubmans. You're the Frederick Douglasses. Right now, and someone someday in this government or others will say to you, so you're the people that made the video, that made the post, that made the movie, that did the tweet, whatever it is. We have a lot more options than just books, luckily. You're those people that started this war. And that's what's happening right now. And then we have more of these. We have a model, it's a beautiful model that happened. And the other thing is we live in such divisive times right now, and it's just heartbreaking. None of us like it, right? But think about the 19th century, how divisive those times were. I mean, they were killing each other over it. And yet there was a group, an inspired group of people who put that aside. It didn't matter race. There was black people, white people, German Americans, Mexican Americans. They all said, you know what? We're going to put this aside. People can be mad at each other. We're not. We're going to come together because people are enslaved. And we're going to do whatever we can do. And they did. And they rescued people. And they got loud. So, and there's some healing in that too, by the way. I got a call from Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin not long ago, and he brought me out to Steelers camp. And he's like, Tim, the NFL is just, there's this divisiveness, and I don't like it, and we need something that we can all agree on. This is a sad commentary of our society, of our nation, of our world, but I think we're at the point where there's only one thing left on the table that we all agree with. That cuts across every political spectrum, every party, everything, right? And it's sad there's only one thing left that everyone can agree on, because anything else, you can't. But there's one thing left. Children shouldn't be kidnapped. Children shouldn't be raped. Children shouldn't be exploited. That's it. That's all we got left. So let's use that, not only because it's the most important cause, because it might be the only thing that brings us together. And we need to come together for the kids, and we need to come together to heal hearts and nations. And so, sorry, Andy. Thanks, guys. Sorry. The second part of the question is why they're not getting loud is because it hurts to look at it. Just like I'll say this too. I've heard people say all the time, if I had lived in the 19th century, I would have been an abolitionist. I know I would have been. And I have to be the jerk that says, you probably wouldn't have been, because the parallels are pretty the same. If you lived in the North, you didn't travel to the South any more than any of us generally travel to high trafficking areas. Again, not that you need to leave the United States because it's here, you just can't see it as well. But the parallels are there. They could turn a blind eye just as easy as we can. So if you would have been an abolitionist then, guess what? You will be right now. It's not that different. And so now's your chance. Stand up right now. So I think people don't want to get hurt is the number one thing. It hurts. I can't tell you how many times I've just crashed and just sobbed. And it hurts so bad. And my wife comes and picks me up and says, as bad as this hurts, compare that hurt to the kid, oh my gosh, and then I just jump back up. And that's what we have to do. And the other thing is, sorry if I'm being so long-winded, but the other thing we need to do is this. They make us mandatorily through the government. I had to go see a shrink constantly to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. I swear I thought I failed the test more times than I didn't, and they said, you passed again. I'm like, really? Because I don't feel like I should be passing it. And the one thing that I had to get over, one of the very first cases I worked in the early 2000s, it was these children that were being sexually abused, and I didn't expect to see what I saw. I would never even begin to tell you what it actually is, because you wouldn't comprehend. We couldn't. A decent mind couldn't comprehend what it actually is. You couldn't comprehend it. And I remember the first time I saw it, I fell down. I dry heaved under my desk, and the children just looked like my kids to me, whether they did or didn't. That's what I saw my kids. And I jumped out of my car, I jumped out of the office, I ran, I checked my kids out from school. I was down in Calexico, California on the border, and I took them home and I just cried. And I couldn't deal with it. And so I got actually help, so I wouldn't see my kids' faces anymore. And I got to the point where I didn't. And I was like, okay, I don't anymore. Then there came a case years later where I was walking into a trafficking place where all these kids were. And I was undercover to buy a kid. And there's a couple dozen children being sold. And it started happening again. And I felt like the anxiety. I started seeing I have too many kids, right? So I can always match a kid to these children. And it started coming on again. I was like, oh my gosh, this hasn't happened for a decade. And I started employing the tools. And then something said, stop. Don't employ the tools. Just let it happen. Just let it happen. See what happens. And I let it happen. And I saw my kids, and they became my kids. And you know what? It was the best thing I ever did. That was bad advice I took all those years earlier. Let it happen. Let them be your kids. Because what wouldn't you do for your kid? All of a sudden, I was pushing envelopes. I was getting more creative. I was doing things I never would have done because they became my kids. And in that case, it's not a surprise that 2 of those kids that we rescued actually literally became my kids because I made that decision, and they're now home with me, and they're my children. So that's the power of letting yourself lose some innocence. Just do it. Let yourself see it. Make them your kids. It hurts, but it's worth it. You know, sacrifice, the word sacrifice, I think we don't understand the meaning of that word. Sacrifice means to give something up to get something better. It doesn't just mean give something up. This is a sacrifice worth making.
And now, speaking of the innocence of a lovely child, Evers here, they wanted to fly in just to be a part of this. Evers, a big advocate for kids. So, Ever Matson, we want to share your question. We'd love to have you speak.
Hi. Hey. Before I get started and ask my question, I'd like to share with everybody that the kids that I serve with my nonprofit are kids who are targeted for trafficking because we live 15 minutes away from Tijuana, and all the kids that I serve, it actually has happened to some of them. So this question is very important to me, and here it is. Hi Tim, my name is Evras Matson. I'm 11 years old, the founder of Child Hunger Sucks, and an advocate for kids in crisis. I'm a young influencer using the social media platform to help kids in crisis. Many of the kids today on social media are not aware of the dangers, and I personally know that because the children that I serve are targeted. How can I educate them and empower them to be safe?
Excellent. Thank you. That was an amazing question. Thank you so much. And thank you for what you're doing. Thanks for coming up here. You have a unique opportunity, and we need more people like you because kids will listen to you. They don't like to listen to adults, unfortunately, sometimes. My kids don't like to listen to me. And if you can, you'll know the answer to that before I do. You need to actually take the initiative here. And I would love to see what you come up with, and we'll connect so you can help me. How do you take this horrific, big, ugly monster, that's what this is that we're fighting, and bring it down to a level that kids can take it and be part of it without scaring them so badly that you ruin their lives or something, right? But they need to know something. And I struggled answering the question that was asked earlier because I don't really know the answer. That's the problem. But as you were talking, it hit me. You'll know the answer before I will, because I can't see things how you see things. You have a very valuable and unique perspective. So why don't we do something? Help me. So I'm going to give you an assignment. Is that okay, Dad?
Yes.
So look at the data, have your parents help you. Look at the data, look at the things, consider all the things we've talked about today. How do you get that message into a place that children can understand it? There's some great tools you should consult too. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has amazing programs and tools that help kids see and help them understand. So definitely look at that, because that could be something that you could introduce and say, watch this video. It's what's the program called? NetSmart, right? Elizabeth knows. NetSmart. But there's programs there and other places where people have done it, but you could make it even better and improve on it. But consult that stuff first, the NetSmarts at National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and then create a program. Create a program around that, and use me. Like I commit to you that I will come on a video, like you write the script for me and help me understand how I can, because I've lost filters. I tell people all the time. My wife doesn't like to take me out in public very often, because my career has caused me to lose all sorts of filters, and I start saying things, you can't say that. Like, okay, you're right. Like I've seen too much, and I have some fried circuits. But so you have to write my script for me, and I will totally help you do this. But come up with a program. This is such a good idea, because you could go viral with the kids, and they can learn what they need to learn to keep themselves safe, and then to help keep others safe. So many of your friends, it's a scary thing, you know. You gotta be very careful on social media. I'm working with a group in San Diego right now called Humans Against Trafficking, and they're building this amazing software that helps kids know when they're in danger and they don't know it. There's recruiters, right? And this is for everybody. There are recruiters, traffickers who just live on Instagram, and they're looking for their next victim, and they know what to look for. They know when someone looks like they're looking for a little too much attention without much reason. Or they look for vulnerability, like, I don't like my parents. She's perfect. She doesn't like her parents. I can lure her out. They look for those things. So this software that Humans Against Trafficking is building, that we're helping, it's an algorithm. It's really cool, where it goes through and it can detect, like if there's a comment down here saying, hey, I'm a photographer, I'd like to take pictures. You'd be a great model. And talking to a 12-year-old, well, that 12-year-old might not see that comment down there, because they're not going to see it. The system will, right? And it sees enough things, the skin to clothes ratio on a 13-year-old's page, stuff like that. All together, it says, boom, these are targets. These are people being targeted and they don't even know it. And then we can then reach out to those people, to their parents, to their teachers, and say, look, help this child before something happens. So that's a really cool tool. And you're from Southern California, I'm guessing?
San Diego.
From San Diego. So you're right there where those people, maybe that's not a coincidence, because you could actually help promote that tool as well. Parents need that tool. Parents can actually have the tool for free. It's all free. And they can actually make sure their kids never end up on one of those lists, right? So anyway, just kind of brainstorming, but let's get contact information and let's work on something, okay?
That would be awesome.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Ever. Thank you so much. Next, I have Marla Catherine and then Britt Lamore.
Hi. I just want to also say thank you for what you do. You're really appreciated in my family and my household. So
thank you.
I often feel pretty overwhelmed and useless when I try to educate myself on the topic of trafficking. And I was just wondering, what are things that I can do to make a difference, and what is the impact that one person can have?
Excellent. Thank you so much. So aside from getting loud, there's something else that we're doing at OUR that I'm super excited about. We have, over the years, we've gathered 15,000 vetted volunteers. We call them our conductor group. Harriet Jacobs was the most important conductor on the Underground Railroad. An abolitionist is awesome. You're loud, it's great. An abolitionist is the next step a conductor is the next step, where you're like, I want to get my hands dirty. I want to get into this even more than that. And for some people and it's not for others. These are people that want to get their hands dirty. They want to actually be deployed into some significant way. And 15,000 people have signed up to be part of our, we haven't even branded it publicly yet. This is the first time I've even said the name Conductor Club. I hope we go with that, Conductor Group. I'm the boss, so I guess if I say it, it is, right? But I love that name because I like honoring and utilizing the amazing heroes of the 19th century that show us the way, that we're willing to do something and really get their hands dirty. And so this group, what they'll do, sign up for this group if you haven't already, is we keep track, your skill sets are there. You have to go through a background check. You have to go through, take a very long test and pass it, fill out an application, and then we know where you live, we know what skills you have. So for example, we're working with a law enforcement unit here in the United States, and they want to set up some sting operations, and so they need to create undercover fronts, undercover websites. Well, just because law enforcement guys don't know how to do that. So we say, okay, on our 15,000 list, who's a web designer that lives near here? Oh, we are. Would you be willing to? Yes. Boom, connect them. One more background check. If you're going to do that, we give you another more extensive one. And now these guys are building software and building undercover tools for law enforcement to catch bad guys and save kids. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. So beyond being an influencer, get people to sign up to be a vetted. Right now online, I think it's just sign up to be a volunteer. We'll brand this better eventually, but it's how the Underground Railroad, the original one, worked. That's how it worked. People gathered like this. What can we do? Well, I've got a house. I've got a mode of transportation. I've got disguises. And people just came in and said they contributed different things based on what their skills were, and that's how they rescued people. So it's just an amazing model. We're grateful for history that teaches us that, and now it's our turn to do that. So thank you for the question.
Hey. Thank you so much for being here again. I just want to ask, I know that we've touched on online trafficking is now so huge in 2020 and this day and age, and we have the younger generations who are trying to educate. Can you explain to us some different red flags to look for and the different traffickers? I know and have heard about different Romeo traffickers, guerrilla traffickers. Can you help explain that so that as people on social media and on these apps that can do good, we can be aware of what to look out for?
Excellent. Yes, thank you. First of all, for anyone who's in charge of a child, a guardian, a parent, one thing I want to say before I get into the more detailed part of your question, know the danger. Again, I'm repeating myself, but I just anecdotally, I've had experiences with parents, and I asked them, I said, would you ever let your 13-year-old daughter go clubbing on a Friday night and go bar hopping and, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? There's no way. And then I say, would you ever let your 13-year-old daughter go behind a closed door with internet access? Oh yeah, every night. Like, okay, I just want to tell you, what you're doing is more dangerous than clubbing. I promise you. The ratio of kid to pedophile online versus kid to pedophile at a club, it's not even close. What you're letting your kid do is way more dangerous. What? Oh my gosh. And so parents need to start there. And they also need to know this, like there's signs in your child. If your child becomes very kind of introspective and social skills start fading, becoming very withdrawn from the family, because what happens, you gotta understand what happens to the brain. These guys that's why they're monsters. They destroy your brain. I was shocked one day, I went to a neurologist to understand this, and he showed me two brains. One brain was the brain of a child who had been sexually assaulted through most of their childhood. And the other one was the brain of a child who had been in a severe car accident. And he said, can you tell? It's the same. It's like, that's right. When you go through that trauma, your brain literally it's a physiological destruction. That's how severe this is. And people don't realize that's how severe it is. It's a rewiring of everything. And it begins, like the earliest signs of something happening is, so you're gonna see it display itself is withdrawn, kind of lashing out, because it is, in effect, and eventually brain damage that these pedophiles, monsters do to kids. And so prevention, and then if you're past that point and you're worried, look for the signs like that. These guys are clever. These Romeo traffickers, they're the worst. They know how to work this. They know how to flatter. They know what to say. They know how to comfort. It's all fake. And then they have you. The other kind of trafficking that I need to bring up, people won't consider it trafficking, but it is, and it happens all the time, is it's bullying trafficking. That's my term for it, I guess. I got to come up with a better one, but what happens is these, a girl, a teenage girl, adolescent girl will get involved with a Romeo trafficker, but it's the football player from a great family, and we're neighbors. Nothing could go wrong. Then they end up having sex, and they videotape it, and then he comes out and says, and they break up, and he says, okay, look what I got. And you know what else I got? I got the email to your church congregation. I got the emails to your principal, to your family, to your grandparents. And I'm going to send this video unless you have sex with my friend over here, and then have sex with him, and then do this. And this guy can be either making money or just doing favors for his buddies. And this girl's going home every night, living with her family, going in her bedroom, and she's being trafficked. And her parents have no idea it's even happening. And it happens anywhere. It doesn't matter the socioeconomic state of your family life. It doesn't matter. In fact, we generally see it more in affluent places. It's that kind of secret trafficking. So these are the kind of trafficking situations that people need to be aware of. It's trafficking. It's as bad as any other kind. I mean, and they end up, I mean, these are the kids that end up being a threat to suicide, right? And so parents need to get involved and get really involved in their kids' lives. And if you catch your kid in something that you disapprove of, right? They're looking at something online, pornography, and this. We have a problem sometimes, especially in culture in this state, where we just react so wrong, and we're just like, "Yo, you're evil," and you draw the line here, and you put your kid here, and you're here. That's not how you do it. You need to recognize the evil that's infiltrated your home, whether it's the images or the Romeo traffickers or whatever it is, and get your kid on your side of the line, and you attack this together. The evil over there. Does that make sense? If we could get that mentality in our parents, we could attack this problem a lot better. Because your kids are under attack. Get on their side and get against the attacker.
One more question. Tim has to catch a flight. Cami Price has a question, and then we'll bring in Jessica and Tyler from OUR Aftercare, and we'll just get going.
Hi, Tim. Thank you for being here. I'm a single mom with 3 little boys, and the thought of all this keeps me up at night far too often. So thank you, first of all, for the work that you do. My question is, can you talk a little bit more about the Rise Up for Children movement and how we can get involved with that?
Yes, thank you for asking that. I have bought and sold children in an undercover capacity on every social media platform out there over my 17 years. So it's a conspiracy, but that's very real. That can happen. That's how it happens. And code names and code words, and they use. I remember ordering cheese pizza from people. That's child pornography. Oh, how many slices? It's 12. I have 12 slices. Okay, it's 12 years old. There's codes, and you learn those codes, and you go online, and so it's very real. And that's, I think, so we kind of this movement just ignited over this. And providentially, I'm repeating myself, but providentially, our director of marketing called me and said, "What do we do with this? Like, this wave is happening. People are, for the first time in our lifetimes, are like getting loud." And she said, "Look, in 3 weeks is July 30th. It's the World Awareness Day for anti-trafficking in persons. Like, wow, that's perfect. Let's do something. Let's. And so it was kind of this. We just kind of announced it before we had a plan. July 30th, something big is happening. Okay, what is it? We got. So what it is people getting loud for the kids. It's basically being a voice for the kids. If there's 2 million children currently being sex trafficked, I think it's more than that, because you add the other 8 million for slave labor. If you're slave labor, I promise, I've been undercover in these areas, you're also being sex trafficked. Just like in the 19th century, we don't talk about that enough. The transatlantic slave trade, you weren't just slave labor, you were sex slaves. And it's the same thing today. I would love, wouldn't it be great, I had this vision actually yesterday driving, if there's 2 million children, let's just start with that number, who are being sex trafficked, if 2 million people rose up and said, I'm the voice for one. I'm the voice for one. 2 million times. And then we can go up to 10 million. And then we can go up to 30 million people enslaved today. And that's what this is. It's standing and being loud for the kids who cannot. We don't even know where they are right now in most cases. But stand up and be their voice. And so in 60 different cities, I think it'll probably go to 160 maybe by July 30th. People are congregating at big parks, and they're gonna have local leaders speak. And the idea is, first and foremost, to ask a question: do you have the tools to keep our kids safe? And if you don't, get them. And if you can't get them, we'll help you get them. That's what I want everyone to say. I want mayors there. I want city council members there. I want law enforcement representatives there. And the question is, what do you have to keep our kids safe? We have a right to ask. And if we don't like the answer, it's not confrontational. Again, like that saying, there's a line here, you're on our side, okay? We're not getting mad at you. We're gonna get mad at the problem. What do you need? Do you have digital dogs? Do you have mobile labs? Are you affiliated with your Internet Crimes Against Children task force nearest you? And if the answer is no, let us help you. And then you call us, let OUR help us help you. And that's the idea, to make sure that through all the societal kind of transformations that are happening, that the kids are not forgotten again. And these are the questions that have to be asked and answered on July 30th in these different cities. So if I had to pin it down to one thing, that's what it is not only raise awareness, but make sure that that's why we wanted in many cities as we can, to make sure that each city becomes a trafficking-free zone. And they're not right now, but we can make it that.
I have your script. Can I read it?
Oh my goodness, yes, you're fast.
Okay.
Do you want to read it on the microphone for us?
You were way fast. I thought this was going to be like a couple weeks I had to prepare for this. Okay.
Tim Ballard of Underground Railroad has challenged me to launch a kid-run movement to end human trafficking. Today we are launching Children Unchained.
I love it. That's awesome. All right. So awesome. Launch that out, and then when you have the details, if you need me or one of our people to speak, or you need we can give you some footage where you can edit it so it's more applicable to children, stuff like that. There's tons of stuff we can do now with this campaign, okay? But I love the name Kids Unchained. Perfect. Let's do it. All right, thank you.
You know, one really amazing thing, I mean, this is a really dark subject, it's a heavy subject, but also looking at Ever and looking at all of you gives us so much hope, and there's so much light in the world. And what Tim is saying, let's make light louder, let's make love louder, let's make the truth louder, right? Even though it's uncomfortable. So this gives us hope. This gives us hope. All of this, everybody watching, everybody sharing this, please share it with everybody. Gives us a ton of hope to save our children, to save, you know, this world really from this evil. So thank you all for being here. Tim, do you want to just take it home, and anything we might have missed, anything you want to share? And you can.
Oh my goodness, I think we missed absolutely nothing. I said things that have been in my mind that I've never said before, because of your awesome questions. I mean, obviously, you guys are you know how to ask questions and think. That's why you're where you are. So I just want to just thank you again. The fact that you're, like, I do not undervalue or take for granted that you're willing to do this. It is hard. It's hard for me still. I'm not used to it. It's worse now than before. It doesn't go away, the pain of seeing this. And so just you being here and those who've tuned in, that you're even here watching, it's so easy to turn. When I go on radio channels often and people say, we don't really want you to come on for that long because we start losing viewership. And it's like, oh, what a horrible effect to have on people. And so I know it's hard. So I have nothing to say but thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And now you've had the courage to do this much. Take the next step and now do something. And we've talked about a dozen different things you can do. Do something. Just pick one of them and do it. Thank you, guys.
It's time to rise up and speak for the voiceless, the children. Please support Operation Underground Railroad and the many other organizations out there working tirelessly to save the children. Even if you can't support them monetarily, you can support them with prayers, which is very powerful. And just as important, if not more so, than any other type of support. Also, I have a couple t-shirts on my Teespring site dedicated to the children. One's our Prayers for the Children shirt, and one that I just created called #SaveOurChildren. If you feel like supporting me, you can do so by going to the Teespring site, buying a shirt, because never forget, something as simple as a shirt can be a very powerful message to the world. If you do visit my site, type ARMOR into the coupon code ARMOR, and you'll get 10% off anything you order. But please, support Operation Underground Railroad. Monetarily if possible, or at least with prayers. And as always, don't forget to pray for the children, our fellow brothers and sisters all around the world, fighting the good fight. And for those still lost in this darkness, so that they too can someday come to the light. May our Father bless you, keep you. May His grace shine upon you and give you peace. See you next time.